The door locked behind me with a sound like a death sentence, and when I turned around, 12 alien women from 12 different species all stopped what they were doing and stared at me like I was either their next meal or their worst nightmare. My head throbbed as I sat up on the cold floor. The fluorescent lights above flickered intermittently, making my eyes sting and my vision blur. Slowly, everything came into focus. A room painted in institutional white, 12 women of various species spread around it, all eyeing me with varying levels of suspicion or curiosity. One had green scales covering her body from head to toe, another was covered in soft fur like an oversized cat, while yet another glowed faintly blue. A few looked almost human, but not quite. Wrong eye colors, strange skin tones, too many fingers. Some looked at me hungrily, hungry enough that I didn't know what scared me more, their apparent intent to eat me or the fear in other eyes when they met mine. I pushed myself up and scanned the room again. One door behind me was locked tight, another one-way glass pane ran along an entire wall on my right. My only companions were 12 potential threats, unless I could figure out a way for them not to be. "Who goes there?" A tall, blue-skinned woman stepped forward from the group with her fists clenched and shoulders squared. She had sharp violet eyes and was built like a warrior, muscles rippling beneath her skin as she looked me over. "My name is Jack," I answered calmly, lifting my hands slowly to show them that they were empty. "I don't know what's going on here, but we're all prisoners in this room." The blue woman blinked, clearly surprised by the lack of aggression or fear from someone who had woken up inside a strange place with alien women around him. She lowered her fists and regarded me more closely. "I am Sibran," she introduced herself tersely. "I speak your language. Why are you here?" "Truth is, I don't know," I said honestly, studying each woman in turn before focusing back on Sibran. "Last thing I remember was being on my ship, and then boom. Next thing I'm waking up inside this room with all of you." Sibran's eyes narrowed as she looked around the room once more at me, the locked door behind us, and her fellow captives pressed against different walls. She sighed deeply before looking back to meet my gaze. "You are not wrong," Sibran confirmed grudgingly. "This is a prison for all of us." I nodded slowly. It wasn't much information, but it was something to start with. I had seen worse situations and come out on top. So far at least this one didn't seem like the exception. "Then let's make sure we stay that way," I said reasonably, "by figuring things out together instead of against each other." Sibran eyed me suspiciously for a long moment before stepping closer. She had to be thinking, what kind of human treats everyone as an equal and tries talking rather than fighting? "Why should I trust you?" she asked finally. "It's either that or not," I pointed out, "and neither of us are leaving here until someone lets us." Sibran didn't answer immediately. She turned to the other women for support but found only a mixture of fear and wariness in their expressions. After another long moment, she sighed again and stepped closer. "We do it your way," Sibran agreed cautiously. "But if you break our trust, then I'm no better than these walls," I said solemnly, nodding to the door behind me as proof of that fact. As soon as my words were out, a soft hum sounded from somewhere above us, a hidden speaker or camera, followed by silence that left me feeling cold and exposed in ways even Sibran couldn't. But there was no time for paranoia now. We had 12 women to keep safe until someone gave them the key. "Good," I said firmly, as I walked slowly forward, putting myself between these women and any danger coming their way. "Let's find out what they want us to do here." On my left, Sibran nodded curtly in agreement, while behind me Dr. Vel'Thane observed through her one-way glass. She watched with a frown as I began the process of building trust among these strangers, not just between humans and aliens, but among themselves too. "Predict aggressive territorial behavior within 30 seconds, she had whispered to her assistant before, but he did neither. Vel'Thane's eyes narrowed further behind her lab coat. For once in this bizarre situation, there was no humor or lightness from my side. This wasn't a game, and the sooner everyone realized that, the better. "Subject behavior does not match predictions," she wrote down on her tablet with increasing frustration, but also fascination. "No aggression whatsoever." With every minute passing, Sibrin began to relax more around me as I kept making small talk in an attempt at easing tensions. The green-scaled woman started backing away whenever I got too close, and the blue-furred one made a soft whimpering noise when our eyes met, but there was no sign of bloodshed yet. Behind glass walls, Dr. Vel'Thane chewed on her lip thoughtfully as she watched me interact with these aliens whose reactions differed so greatly from anything in her notes or studies. This wasn't the chaos and carnage expected. It looked like something much more dangerous and interesting to her. "This is unexpected," she muttered to herself, "but not unwelcome." The room remained tense, but for now peace reigned despite a dozen species thrown together by an unknown hand. All eyes were on me, as if I was their leader, even though nobody had voted, and there wasn't any title or authority given yet. The situation demanded it. And somewhere behind that glass wall, Dr. Vel'Thane watched with keen interest while her scientific models began to crumble away, replaced by something new she hadn't anticipated at all: fascination for this human commander named Jack, who refused to be a pawn in anyone's game, but was instead becoming the unexpected key to unlocking secrets neither of us had ever expected. This chapter establishes not only the immediate setting and situation, but also begins laying groundwork for how Commander Jack Reeves handles himself within it. His calm demeanor, refusal to engage in assumed aggression or dominance display, and his proactive approach towards cooperation among captives set him apart from typical sci-fi tropes involving humans captured by aliens. Meanwhile, Dr. Vel'Thane's growing interest provides a catalyst that promises deeper layers of mystery as the story progresses. 3 days had passed since Jack Reeves found himself locked in a room with 12 alien women, each species unique and potentially hostile towards one another. Yet, under his guidance, they had formed an uneasy but functional society within their confines. On the 3rd day, the routine began as it did every morning. The soft hum from above announced that breakfast was ready. Outside of the door's small delivery slot, where Jack stood waiting to distribute it among the women based on a meticulous schedule had created. The room was now organized with clear markers designating sleeping quarters and personal spaces for each alien woman, their belongings neatly arranged according to his rules. Kira, a pale blue-skinned Vel'Thane female, sat quietly by him as they waited for the food delivery. She had grown comfortable enough around Jack since had intervened in her skirmish with another occupant of the room, a furred and scaled creature named Zoranai, over what she believed to be an unequal distribution of rations. "Jack," Kira said softly, her voice tinged with curiosity, "why do you help us? We are strangers. Some might have hurt you on day one." Jack turned his head slightly to face her while maintaining a firm grip on the food tray he was about to distribute. He shrugged nonchalantly and gave her a small smile. "Maybe," he acknowledged quietly, nodding towards their makeshift community around them with an almost wistful expression. "But you didn't, and we're all stuck here now. Might as well make the best of it." As Kira watched him distribute food evenly among the women, including himself, she felt a strange mixture of awe and confusion. She had never encountered a human like Jack before. He seemed to possess an uncanny ability to calm tensions and foster cooperation where there should only be chaos. The hum from above signaled that breakfast was ready, and as usual, Jack took charge of dividing it equally among the women with Kira's assistance. Before she could protest about her role in the distribution, however, he handed over a portion for himself without hesitation or complaint. "Fair?" he asked them all firmly but kindly after handing out each serving. The room fell silent. None of these women had ever encountered such an equitable approach to their scarce resources. It was completely foreign yet strangely appealing. They nodded in agreement as Kira looked up at Jack, her violet eyes wide with surprise, and perhaps something else she couldn't quite name. Behind the one-way observation glass, Dr. Cirrus Vel'Thane watched these interactions with increasing bewilderment. She had expected a breakdown of order almost immediately, but was witnessing the exact opposite unfold before her very eyes. Her assistant hovered nervously beside her as he tried to make sense of what they were seeing and recording. Predict aggressive territorial behavior within 30 seconds, Dr. Cirrus had instructed earlier, only for her model's predictions to be completely debunked by Jack's actions from day one onward. Now she watched in fascination as the human continued his efforts towards establishing peace among these alien captives despite overwhelming odds against it. No aggression whatsoever, she muttered under her breath, tapping notes rapidly into a digital tablet as more of her assumptions crumbled away. She couldn't deny that curiosity was growing alongside frustration. There had to be an explanation for why Jack's methods were working where others would fail so spectacularly. As the women began settling in after their breakfast, with no sign of conflict erupting, another unexpected development occurred within this room. Transformed by its human occupants' steady guidance lay a shy four-armed woman who rarely spoke since her capturer began learning card games devised from torn paper and makeshift rules written on scraps around them. "Here," Jack said gently, as he demonstrated a simple trick to shuffle the papers she was using for their improvised cards. "See how this works? Each hand is different but fun too." Leia's eyes widened in surprise as she watched him demonstrate, then carefully imitated his movements with clumsy precision. Her small smile broke through her usual reserve when the card fell neatly into place. "Thank you," Leia whispered softly, looking up at Jack and meeting his calm gaze for what felt like an eternity to them both. He merely nodded in response before turning back towards their game setup, where Kira was already waiting eagerly with a deck of cards assembled from more paper shreds. Behind the glass wall, Dr. Cirrus Vel'Thane watched this exchange intently. Another piece slipped away from her preconceived notion about human behavior under duress. Her assistant observed quietly beside her, but could sense his employer's mounting intrigue as well as tension. "Subject defies all predictions," she typed into her tablet with renewed interest, "has created functional social structure, leadership based on fairness and cooperation." She hesitated before adding one final note to herself, without ever looking away from the display in front of them: fascination for this human commander named Jack, who refuses to be a pawn in anyone's game. And so, as day 3 turned into night, and then back again, under their unending observation by unseen hands, Commander Jack Reeves continued his improbable mission, forging unity among disparate species through kindness rather than coercion, something that Dr. Cirrus Vel'Thane found increasingly both unsettling and intriguing despite all her scientific models crumbling away in the face of this unexpected phenomenon unfolding right before her eyes. The observation room was silent except for Director Kreth's heavy footsteps as he stormed in, his face flushed and eyes blazing with fury. He slammed Cirrus reports onto her desk so hard that papers flew everywhere. "These are useless," Kreth bellowed, waving a hand dismissively at the scattered pages. "Community building, conflict resolution, card games. This is not what I need to see." Cirrus straightened in her chair, meeting Kreth's glare with an unwavering gaze. "The data shows that Commander Reeves has managed to establish peace and cooperation among his captors," she argued calmly. Kreth stepped closer, towering over Cirrus as he leaned down menacingly. His breath was hot on her face, making the hair on the back of her neck stand up. He snatched one of the reports from her desk and waved it under her nose angrily. "Your data is flawed," he spat out. "Sir, I don't care what your data shows." Kreth cut Cirrus off sharply, his voice laced with menace. "Change the conditions in that room. Cut their food rations by half. Increase stress levels and remove bedding. Force him to show you who he really is." Cirrus' heart pounded as she looked up at Kreth, feeling a sudden surge of anger mixed with desperation. She couldn't let them treat these sentient beings like test subjects any longer. "The conditions are already challenging," Cirrus said firmly but softly. "This man, Commander Jack Reeves, is dealing with it admirably." Kreth's face darkened further as he straightened up, his eyes narrowing to slits. He leaned forward again, bringing their faces nearly nose to nose. "Dr. Vel'Thane," Kreth growled menacingly. You are a replaceable researcher here. Do what I say or find another career path. Cirrus swallowed hard but held her ground. She knew she had no choice but to comply with the director's orders. As he turned and stormed out of the room, Cirrus watched him go, feeling heavy-hearted. That night in the observation room, Kreth's changes were immediately felt by Commander Jack Reeves and his alien companions. Food delivery came early, as before, but this time it was half what they had grown accustomed to receiving daily. Kira noticed first when she held out her hand for a plate and found only crumbs instead of something substantial. Jack's eyes narrowed in suspicion. He knew Kreth's changes were intended to break their unity, or at least weaken them enough that tensions would rise between the 12 women. He counted each piece of food carefully before distributing it evenly among the women present. There was barely any left for himself. He took a deep breath and started dividing what little remained into smaller portions for everyone. When he had finished handing out all but one portion, Jack turned to look at Kira, who watched him closely from across the room. Her violet eyes were filled with uncertainty. Kira's voice broke through his concentration as she spoke quietly. You give away your food. Why? Jack's stomach growled loudly in response, reminding him that he too was hungry, but he ignored it and offered a small smile to Kira. I can handle hunger, Jack said firmly yet kindly. Some of you cannot. A leader takes care of his people first. Kira stared at him silently for a long moment before her expression softened slightly into something akin to wonder or confusion she couldn't quite name. We are not your people, Kira murmured quietly, almost under her breath, as if trying it out herself. We come from 12 different worlds. Jack's eyes held hers steadily, and he gave another tired but sincere smile. You may be strangers, Jack agreed calmly yet with conviction in his tone, but you're my only hope right now. So yes, we are all we have. As Cirrus watched through the one-way glass wall, she felt a strange mix of emotions churn within her chest. She had expected chaos after Kreth's changes, but saw none instead. Jack's calmness and sense of responsibility were evident in everything he did. Cirrus couldn't help watching as Jack broke his own portion into 2 even smaller parts, before offering one half to the smallest woman present, a pale, thin creature who rarely spoke since arriving. She took it silently with grateful eyes that met Jack's briefly, but without breaking her usual reserve. Behind Cirrus, her assistant watched the scene unfold in utter disbelief. He tapped a note on his tablet while staring at the display screen intently before finally turning to look back up at his superior officer beside him. Cirrus whispered almost unconsciously to herself as she continued watching Jack interact with others around him. What are you? The next morning, Cirrus found herself sneaking out of her quarters earlier than usual. She knew what Kreth had done was unethical and wrong, even though she reported up the chain of command about his directives. It seemed no one cared enough to stop them. So instead, she took action for herself. She brought extra rations from her own meals, enough just to make each woman's portions slightly larger than before, but not enough to notice right away if anyone were watching closely. She didn't tell any of the others about it. There was no need to draw unnecessary attention when such small actions could still have a significant impact. Cirrus left these extra rations where they would appear on their normal food delivery times along with everyone else's meals, knowing Jack and his companions relied heavily upon routine for comfort in this place. That morning when the meal came as usual, it was immediately noticeable by how slightly larger the portions were compared to yesterday's meager allotment. Kira looked up at Jack suspiciously before nodding slowly in approval. She understood now why he had given away his own portion last night. Jack noticed too but didn't comment openly about it with anyone else present, simply gave each woman their meal as usual without question or complaint, knowing this was just one more step toward whatever next challenge they might face together. When the routine of food distribution ended and everyone returned to normal activities again that day, with her card games Leia had taken a newfound interest in, or other simple diversions, room felt oddly peaceful once more despite Kreth's efforts to upset their balance. Cirrus watched this unfold through her one-way glass, feeling an uncomfortable fluttering sensation deep inside. Her heart did something she couldn't explain based on any scientific model. It simply didn't fit within the framework of what she knew about human behavior under duress or conflict situations. She whispered almost inaudibly to herself, yet somehow louder than before, "What are you?" As her eyes drifted across Jack and his companions again, Cirrus found herself nodding involuntarily, like she understood something far beyond any scientific explanation. This was becoming a problem indeed, that went deeper than just the research or experiment. Behind the glass walls of their observation room, where no one could see what truly unfolded there every day between Commander Jack Reeves and 12 alien women from different worlds, Cirrus felt more intrigued by this man's methods despite all her models failing spectacularly under his watchful eye. She knew she needed to find out why he was making such a difference here. And if that meant going against Kreth's orders, so be it. For now though, as day turned into night, and then back again in their endless observation cycle, Cirrus Vel'Thane watched Commander Jack Reeves continue his improbable mission, forging unity among disparate species through kindness rather than coercion. Something she found both unsettlingly fascinating despite her best efforts to remain detached. Chapter 4, Day 7 began as usual for Commander Jack Reeves, his daily routine punctuated by a relentless monotony that threatened to consume him entirely. Yet amidst this despair, there was an unspoken solidarity among his unlikely companions, an alliance born of necessity and mutual respect. Dr. Cirrus Vel'Thane watched through the one-way glass with increasing frustration. Her scientific model had crumbled as Jack's influence overcame any sense of chaos she expected from such a diverse group under duress. Instead, there was order that defied every explanation within her grasp. It couldn't be ignored any longer. This morning, Cirrus broke protocol and entered the room without permission. Everyone froze at her sudden intrusion, a stark contrast to their usual routine. The women recoiled. They knew too well what researchers meant when entering experimental chambers. It often heralded pain or punishment of some kind. Jack stepped forward, positioning himself between Cirrus and the group, his body forming an unexpected barrier. For a moment, all tension hung in the air like smoke before Jack spoke calmly but firmly, "I am not here to hurt you." Cirrus could see the collective relief wash over their faces as she hurriedly explained herself. "I am not here to hurt you. I am here to tell you the truth." She paused briefly before continuing with a mixture of urgency and frustration, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "This is an experiment. You are being observed. Kreth wants to prove that beings under stress will act out in primitive mating behaviors. What happens after this, when it's all over?" Her eyes flicked nervously between each member before landing on Jack, who met her gaze with a stony expression. When she finished speaking, there was only silence, a deep chasm of unspoken words and fears. It was Jack who broke the stillness first when he asked quietly but firmly, "If this experiment ends, what happens to them?" Cirrus' heart clenched as she avoided his piercing eyes. Even a scientist could understand reluctance in avoiding such questions. She answered truthfully, but coldly, "Disposal. They are evidence. Kreth will not let you leave." Jack's face had been an unreadable mask until that moment, but now it cracked a rare glimpse of something dangerous and primal burning beneath his usual calm exterior. His voice dropped to ice as he spoke with a barely concealed rage. "Then we're leaving." Cirrus watched in disbelief as Jack turned towards the women, speaking like a commander issuing orders instead of pleading for help. "We move in 10 minutes. Fast and quiet. Stay together. Protect each other." The sudden authority in his voice left no room for argument. Before she could protest further, or even form coherent thoughts about what was happening, Cirrus found herself nodding almost without thinking. She whispered quickly, "I have door codes, guard schedules, a ship." Jack's expression didn't change, still calm and controlled, but there was a glint of understanding now as he looked at her, his voice steady despite the turmoil beneath it all. "Are you going to help, or get out of our way?" She took a deep breath before answering honestly, "I will help." And with that declaration, she made up her mind. As Cirrus led them through corridors, like ghosts moving swiftly and silently towards freedom, they encountered several guards. Kira moved first, throwing one into the wall, while another crumpled under the scaled woman's sharp claws. The entire operation was swift and precise. Jack never even needed to fight. The hangar bay loomed ahead as they approached their destination, a last line of defense in this twisted experiment gone awry. Kreth awaited them there with a cadre of guards, his weapon aimed directly at Jack. "Returned to containment," he snarled, sneering confidently despite the odds against him. Jack stepped forward without hesitation or fear. Unarmed yet unafraid, he spoke calmly but firmly. "No." Kreth's arrogance faltered as Kira moved again, this time silencing any resistance with brutal efficiency. It took only 8 seconds for all guards to fall still. Jack remained motionless beside her. "You were supposed to fight each other." Kreth spat in disbelief, backing away slowly from the calm man before him and his unlikely allies. Jack's voice was cold as ice when he responded, "I treated them like people. You should try it sometime." With Cirrus leading the way again, they boarded a ship already prepped for departure by her own hands. As engines ignited beneath their feet, Kira stood beside Jack, curiosity in her eyes and determination unwavering. "You could have escaped alone," she murmured quietly, as if questioning some deeper aspect of his character that went beyond mere survival instinct or duty to comrades in arms. Jack watched the facility shrink below them as they ascended into the stars, his gaze distant yet resolute. "Because no one should be left in a cage. I'd been alone too long." 6 months later, and worlds apart once more, Jack's companions had found their paths homesome with joy at returning to familiar soil, while others struggled amidst newfound freedom. But through it all, they stayed connected, their bond forged under shared adversity stronger than any distance could break. They continued playing virtual card games over comm links late into the night and early morning hours, each victory or loss celebrated together regardless of location. Cirrus had chosen a different path to own, where her own sense of duty shifted from cold research to warmer human connection. She stayed with Jack, not because she owed him, but rather out of choice. He showed her something new about humanity that intrigued even this once detached scientist deeply. "You have seen much," Cirrus admitted softly one evening as they sat together under the stars aboard a ship far removed from Kreth's cruel domain. "But what you teach me, it is more." Jack smiled gently at her confession before responding simply, "Then show me your world." In teaching each other their languages and customs over countless days adrift between worlds, Cirrus and Jack found common ground amidst differences vast enough to span galaxies. They understood now that neither of them would ever truly be alone again. Together, they faced whatever tomorrow might bring hand in hand. And so, as the stars continued their timeless dance above them, Commander Jack Reeves and Dr. Cirrus Vel'Thane forged a bond stronger than any cage could hold, a testament to hope found amidst despair and kindness triumphing over cruelty.